Welcome to episode 2. In this episode, we have 3 remote viewing targets, and the links to participate and do each one are in the description below. So if you want to start with the next target, which happens not to be an outbounder, but it's actually trying to perceive an object, which is really interesting. The link is in the description below. You'll see the links for the 2 other targets for this episode, but you don't want to go there until you've seen the feedback for the first target. If you haven't seen episode 1, you want to do that first because there I give a brief instruction of how to do a very basic remote viewing session. Otherwise, click below to participate, do a brief session, and then keep playing this video to watch your feedback. Okay, and now let's look at their transcripts. Yeah, so this target was an object. That was what the coordinate was associated with. And it's interesting because most remote viewers most of their time is spent trying to perceive events or locations. So to focus in on a thing, like what's this thing? I think that's a little more challenging unless you spend a lot of time training for that kind of task.
Yeah, I really like the target that you chose because the keyboard is so distinct with the colors and the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it might have been a little confusing that you placed the keyboard on top of a box and then the box was on top of a table. That might have had some confusing elements since boxes aren't typically under keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
But at least, how did you think they did?
Well, I thought these results were kind of interesting in some cases because of here things get a little symbolic. I think we'll see that in some of the transcripts, the symbolism that people picked up on. But you're right, it's sometimes really important being careful about how you set up a target, and maybe putting a piano keyboard on top of a big cardboard box wasn't the best way to go.
Yeah, and you don't really think of these things till it's over with. But even then, some of these viewers are moderately experienced, some are very experienced. So the viewers range from having some training to being advanced. And for the advanced viewers, we would expect them to at least get some characteristics, even if they didn't get everything right, even with a target that could be intellectually confusing. So let's see, we'll start with Angela's.
Let's see, confidence scale 1 to 10. I'm gonna put this one at less than half again. I am pretty low energy, and actually maybe that helped my session, who knows. But I felt okay about it. There were just a lot of conflicting images that were coming through that felt at odds with each other. So, I felt like it was spongy and hard and angular and curving. And so there was just like a lot of diametrically opposed aspects of the target, and sometimes that means I'm just all over the place and not really on signal line.
The first place I see on her transcript that might connect is she has an analytical overlay, an AOL on the right side near the bottom of her first page, and all it says is stripes. And it says beach ball, but stripes, which makes me think she might be picking up on the black and white keys. But I know sometimes that's a stretch.
Angela had feeling that object represents something else, like a replica. And so to me, a keyboard is a replica of an actual piano. Mm-hmm. That might be a stretch, but as a pianist myself, that's how I tend to think of keyboards, especially something like that, where it's really not a full keyboard that really looks, it doesn't really look as full as a piano.
Yeah. You might even call it a toy version or an artificial piano. Yeah.
And she said that it's miniature components of this being entertaining. Felt like a toy.
There it is, toy. Yeah.
But an intellectual,
Mature
level toy.
So it's interesting because the mental process involved in training as a piano player, it's really working with the mind and training the relationship to the fingers and the subconscious patterns. So I think she's definitely on some level connected.
Yeah, it was interesting with this one and one or two others. I felt that the viewers did a good job with the conceptual aspects of things, such as when you were at the iFly, like a sense of having fun versus being like enclosed but in a larger space. So it seems like sometimes viewers are really able to tune into the conceptuals or ambiance of a place, even if they're not getting all the physical structures correct.
I think we're definitely going to see that with some of the later targets where they pick up on ambiance more than anything else. Yeah. So let's go to Carl.
Sean and Deborah, this one very quickly. Difficult to pin down. Felt something strong with energy, with relating to meditation, a sort of calming, focused item, trancey, blending, kick back, maybe connect with Iron Realm. Confidence rating 50% or less.
The thing I love about Carl's transcripts is he is an artist, and so all of his sketches look very nice and neat. His lines and perspectives are always nice, whether or not they're always correct, with which a lot of times he has really incredible hits, as we'll see later, but they always look nice and neat and are easy to read.
Yeah, in his first 2 pages, because you mentioned his artistry, we're seeing a lot of right angles and rectangles.
Yes.
And basically that's what a keyboard is. It's a row of rectangles. And with the black keys rising just above the white, because one of his pictures looks like steps a little bit, like one rectangle slightly above the other.
Yeah, some of the shapes are a little distorted, but you can see he has a lot of aspects, and he does tend in his sessions to go into a lot of the details. So he's got repeating patterns and boxy shapes. Now it's interesting because he had a singing bowl, which that's not correct, but just that he was getting something with music, something musical right away is interesting. Do you ever have candles lit in that room?
And incense. So,
I know someone else said they smelled incense.
Oh, wow.
And this starts to really speak to how our perceptions work, because here you invited the viewers to come into a room and you showed them the room and that you showed them the area where you would place the object. You just didn't show them the object. So you invited them into the room. And while the keyboard does not have a smell associated with it, except maybe plastic or metal, but if there was incense burning in the room and you're inviting their consciousnesses in, how could they avoid that? And a lot of times we want to think of objects as isolated from each other, but we start to see how everything is really combined, and it's really, we're always having a full sensory experience. All right, should we look at Ellie's target next?
I did not front load at all. I didn't open any of the links to see where in your house it was or anything. I'm going to do that now after I send this to you. I kept seeing you'll see it. I kept seeing an object that looked like this, and I had a lot of AOLs on this one. It went from a cover of a plant, a terrarium, to a helium balloon machine coming into your home. So my imagination was going, and also looked like a grandfather clock at times.
Okay, so she writes wooden, which a real piano would be, man-made. So that's a hit. White face. So most of the keys are white on the face of the keyboard. Old and antique. And again, if it was a real thing, it might be antique, but it's an artificial plastic version of it.
Yeah, we have to be careful that if they have something that's wrong, that we say, yes, that is wrong.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
How far can we stretch it, right?
Yeah.
Too generous and make everything count in some way.
Yeah. So if we're acting as judges, we will say that she did have a hit with man-made and white. Old and antique is not correct. She does have a hissing sound. So just that she got a sound right away, similar to Carl, who also had a sound, is interesting.
On her second page at the top under her AOLs, she writes machine.
Yeah, would you say it's a machine? I think that would qualify. What do you think?
It's an electronic machine.
Should we move to Lena's transcript next?
Yeah.
The feeling was metal, plastic, rubbery sort of feeling to the touch. I got also 95% man-made, 5% organic.
It's interesting with Lena's because she has string-like, which a real piano has strings, but this wouldn't have strings.
She has metal, plastic, rubber. I'm sure there are components of all those three materials in the keyboard. Feeling to touch, which is interesting because playing keyboard is all about touch.
She has white. It's interesting. It seemed as if almost all the viewers had the color white. I just don't see black as well. And that would have made me feel more comfortable that they were all on target if they had black and white. Just white, not quite so sure.
Yeah, that's a little too broad. Should we go to Coral?
Sure.
Hi, Sean. So about this target, we say something in English called curiosity killed the cat. And I was too curious. I wanted to see what was behind that door. So I went and had a look at the table, and that kind of conditioned my session because it had to sit on the table, and then I was sitting at the table. So I felt a bit, yeah. Well, you know, I always have this kind of, fear of failure, FOF. So, yeah, performance anxiety. And I might have made it worse because I'd gone and been curious before. Sometimes it's better to just work dead cold.
And once again, Coral did a nice job with her typed summary.
This is great. She's right on in the first few sentences. She says, there are gestalts of man-made / object and biological. So if you assume someone playing the keyboard, there you go. The biological seems to be involved with the object, has pleasure from it and joy. The biological seems to be able to make it make a noise, and it feels as though they can hold it between their hands. So not between their hands, but the hands come into play. But then it says it feels like the biological is Asian-like and female, and there's nobody like that here.
But yeah, being able to make a noise with it and hold it between their hands. Now, if you stretch your hands out, you can have it in between your hands, or just the fact that hands are interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the object feels wooden, glassy, large, boxy. She had red and white. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. Not red, it should be black, but
Mm-hmm. And as you said earlier, there's that color white again on yet another transcript.
yeah. She says it has a boxy, hollow feel with the inside filled and mechanical.
She writes ribbed, which to me could also be the black and white, black and white, black and white pattern.
I was wondering, when you put this on top of the box, were you having any balance issues with it, as far as were you worried it would fall off? Because she said there was something that felt a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Although if anyone were to hear me try to play it, that would be dangerous. But speaking of the box, on the second page of her transcript, she writes, the boxy feels squarish. And so like box comes up and it's sitting right on a box.
Well, and that's the thing, if viewers are getting that the target is a box, and you placed a box in the area where you told them you'd be putting the target, then I do think that we need to consider the box and the keyboard both as targets. Right? Because you showed them a blank table and you said, this is where the target, where the object is going to be at the time of viewing. And there was a box and there was a keyboard. So both of them would be included in the target. And if that's the case, then we really do need to give credit for anything that is pertaining to that box.
I agree. It's that kind of be careful what you ask for. And I did ask for that. So
yeah, she says the object feels boxy. It has a boxy, hollow feel with the inside filled. Is there anything in that box?
I don't remember. It's long gone now, but it could have had anything in it. It was just something I grabbed to put it on. So
yeah, there's so many details when it comes to constructing targets. And oftentimes we just don't realize these things until it's the viewer's transcripts that help show us what worked with the target and some of the aspects that we never even considered when we constructed them.
Yeah, in an ideal remote viewing project, I'd say there's the remote viewer, there's someone assigning coordinates, there's someone choosing the target, and then maybe someone just their only job is to design the target carefully, and that's all they do. The more it can be shared between different people on a team, the better quality experiment I think you got. Yeah.
And even when someone is only choosing the target that's their only job, sometimes them running it by other people as well to make sure that there aren't any complications with that target is helpful, because it's just too easy for even someone who is like, oh, I have the most brilliant idea for this target, and then they realize that somehow they're complicating it or there's something involved they're not thinking of. And I've seen that happen with a group of 5 people who chose a target, and in the end they thought it was the best target, but there were some problems with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, let's go to target number 3 now. Are you ready to do target number 3? Then click the link below in the description, grab a pen and paper, pause this video, do your session, and then keep playing when you're ready to watch your feedback. Well, this target obviously is the hot springs, and it's located just outside of Idaho Springs in the foothills of Colorado, about 45 minutes west of Denver. Beautiful place, and I'm curious to see what the remote viewers pick up, because in the springs it's very tropical, it's very green, but here we are located in the middle of the mountains where it's kind of gray today, a little bit cool. It's springtime, but it's still very wintry up here in the mountains, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. And we'll start with Angela again.
It was an interesting outbounder experience for me because I was very tuned into what I thought you might be feeling as you were in the space. So a lot more of the aesthetic impact or the emotional impact rather than the visual. And that came later. But from the get-go, it felt like there was just a stillness or a calmness or a serenity to the experience of the space that came through even before I started doing my S2s. But anyway, that's what I got.
What I really like about the transcripts about this target is they sort of picked up close, but not exactly. But there are some qualities in this space that we see in the feedback video. So Angela on the right in her AOL, she writes church, museum, monastery, and all of those have the quality of openness, but containment, and just that feeling to it, which I think this hot spring could have that feeling because of the high ceilings and the surroundings of plants and the natural lighting inside.
Angela said this was an introspective space, that it was sensuous and quiet and architecturally unusual. She said it was a gathering place, but few people there, sacred, honoring space, reverent.
Yeah, it's funny because on one end of the pool, you could see people having fun, but at different times while I was there, there'd be people in a corner just with their eyes closed, leaning back, and just they're in their own internal space while they're soaking in the water.
I'm not sure why she did seem to feel like she was in a cemetery.
It's grim.
I'm not sure what that's about.
Yeah.
Is this an older place? Do you know how long they've been around?
So I'm just injecting something very quickly here because I'm in post-production, I'm editing, and I realized I had to pay more attention to what the viewers were picking up at this location. There's that sense of sacredness that one of the viewers had picked up on, but then we were laughing about this notion of a cemetery and a tombstone and this more grim scene. And editing, I thought I need to look deeper here. What is the history of this place? So I went to the Hot Springs website. It's indianhotsprings.com. And there it says, long before the white man took his first steps along Soda Creek, the Ute and Arapaho Indians considered the hot springs sacred. They had probably explained them in magical terms as a place that was primarily for gods and spirits. The healing waters of the Great Spirit were a special place that they had come to for many generations to worship and to heal the sick and wounded. Soda Creek, that runs in front of the resort, was the dividing line between the Ute and Arapaho Indian nations. The hot springs were considered neutral grounds. And the final sentence says, in 1859, when the white man came to the Rockies, the life of the Indians changed in many ways, including the use of the hot springs. And I think that's just a polite way to say that white men showed up and there were more massacres, just as has come across this whole continent in North American history, and that happened here too. And I just want to acknowledge that, because on the surface, we were approaching this target as a resort or a place to just relax and chill out in these delicious waters. But it's a place that's held a lot of sacredness for centuries, if not longer, and then ending in violence and massacre, which is very sad. So I just want to acknowledge that. There's a space for cultural sensitivity when we do remote viewing tasks.
Okay, shall we look at Carl's next?
Yeah.
Oh, I got the idea of skiers going down a ramp and then sort of somersaulting or an earthshore type thing. There was trails, loops, twirls, Some grace, some showpiece. Thank you.
He did have floating.
On his second page, he has this weird little drawing of two flippers.
Those do look like flippers or duck's feet.
No.
Oh, he says here in his summary, I kept seeing shapes in what appeared to be the sky or liquid. So
Yeah.
liquid.
I'd say that might be one of the most difficult challenges for any remote viewer is consistency in the quality of a session, right? If you give any remote viewer 10 sessions in a row to do, they're never going to do excellent every single one. You know, we have up days and down days.
All right. How about corals next?
In the beginning, I saw like ice and movement, flashing. And then I got involved with something else, which was like an immersive experience and passing through something. Time flashed by. I'd done an hour before I thought about it. I took a bit of time with the drawings.
Interesting, under part B on the first page, she writes land/ice and then AOL ice rink. And I've seen that in other remote viewing sessions where people confuse ice with water. Of course, they're the same element, just manifested differently. It's interesting that the mind kind of sometimes mixes us up.
She has a structure that looks like it's curved on top. Now, can you describe the ceiling of that building?
Yeah, this is the one I was thinking about earlier. This is great because the ceiling is tall and it arches overhead and it is supported by straight metal rods or whatever that material is. But so on one side they're horizontal and then there's some curving because the ceiling does curve over. It almost has the quality of like a cathedral, but of course it's not a cathedral. But I think her drawing is a pretty good analog for what the overhead ceiling looks like. And she writes white, gray, and again, icy. And it wasn't snowing while I was there. It was cool, but it is a place where even in late spring, there will be snow and ice covering it, but there wasn't that day. But the colors white and gray are predominant overhead because of the way the plastic or glass, whatever that is, how it lets in the sunlight, makes it muted.
And she said translucent. Would you say that translucent as in see-through at the top of it? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
She says man-made curving structure, layered, tiered, a bit of an enchanted feeling. She said it feels like there are biologicals, which I think she means people involved in a level of experience. They are active as well as passive, watching, sitting, and standing.
Yeah, I think she really described it well.
I was, however, looking for more of a sense of water in these transcripts, since the pool, you were in the water and you were in the pool. Mm-hmm. So I would have hoped that the viewers would, at the very least, all have water in their target their transcripts. Should we look at Ellie's next?
Yeah.
I did the Alpha Sound by Jose Silva. Then I went in and did Theta by Silva. So I really got myself back into the zone. Point is that when I removed myself to go do it again and see if I could get in there, there was just nothing. So I said, okay, fine, I'm just going to leave this. I'm not going to force anything. Just let it be. So this is what I got. And I sent you the picture and we'll see what it is. And I'll see you soon. All right. Thank you.
This is great. This is one that made me think maybe she picked up on when I went to the snack bar afterwards to the gift store. Because they had some ice cream bars, they had some little chocolates, and here she's got an ice cream cone. And at the top, she has those round those circles with the spokes, which that's what made me think maybe she was picking up on the large umbrellas, but that's a stretch on my part.
Oh, look, she has lake, and she drew a kind of a roundish circle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a lake, but now, did you say these are hot springs? Is it being?
It's being fed by natural hot springs. So I think that a lake is also a natural body of water. She's kind of getting into that quality of it.
And you could tell she was a little confused. She said outdoors, but with a question mark. When I saw the target, I thought, now this is probably going to be a little challenging for the viewers, because on the one hand, with all the foliage and trees on the inside, you might, if they just came in right at ground level, they might really think they were outside unless they looked around at the surrounding structure. So there's a lot of outside elements inside, however.
Yeah. It's like the indoor skydiving. It's an illusion. It's not what it seems to be on the outside, which is interesting because sometimes remote viewers or experienced remote viewers ask, is there a way, if we wanted to hide a target? Because I know with the government and military, that's a concern. How do we prevent someone from viewing a location? And maybe it's all about creating illusions like these that make it that much more difficult to pick up an accurate reading on it.
Yeah. And so far you've had 3 targets that were somewhat illusions. There was the iFly, not actual skydiving, but indoors. And then there was the keyboard that's not quite a piano and not quite a full keyboard, kind of toyish. And now here you have an outdoor scene, but actually indoors. So you've got a tricky
Uh-oh, no one's going to want to play with me anymore.
Or maybe this just speaks to the nature of reality and what people typically think of as entertainment. You know, they're trying to create these controlled environments that mimic the outdoor activities, but put them in as maybe a safer context so that everyone can enjoy them.
Yeah. Is that a sad commentary on modern society? We seek escape by looking at artificial experiences.
Yeah, I guess that's really what we're talking about here, is these are artificially constructed entertainment and outing experiences.
So Lena next?
Yes.
As in, for my confidence level, I will give it a 50%. And if I would have to conclude it, like make a summary about it, then I would say that this area is a place where definitely there's aliveness to it. It's not a quiet place. I feel like there's either noise or people who make sounds there. I don't really feel like it's a quiet place. And also I felt like there was like moist in the air too, like because of 2 reasons, either the people, but also something makes it moisty for some reason.
She said this is a sweaty environment, and she said there's water and spray, and she called it a water world and felt like there were some water games.
And she also writes, the environment is alive, which makes me think of the walls with the plants growing out of them.
Yeah.
This is a great one. In her second page in the bottom corner under AOL, she has playground. So with kids jumping in and out of the water, it sort of has that quality. Ready for the next target? This one's unusual. As you'll see after you click on the link before for target number 4, the task is to see or perceive what is this huge number between 0 and 9 I put on one of the walls in my home. All you have to do is see the number on the wall. The information is in the link below, so click, and after you've done your session, continue playing this video to see your feedback. Okay, now let's talk about target number 4. And so they didn't do transcripts for this one. They just sent me a video telling me what they thought it was. And the best one, I think, was Ellie, because she said 2.
The number that I saw after seeing many of them was the number 2. And I'm going to go with the number 2.
And she did note that there were a couple other numbers that she saw also, but she said 2, and it was a 2. But I think she said one of the numbers was a 9 or 7.
Although I did see 7 and 9 dancing next to it.
Because someone else also got a 2, right? Was it Lena?
It was Lena.
Hi, Sean. I don't know if you could have 2 options here. My second option would be a 2.
That was your second number.
Okay, so 2 people got 2, which I thought was great. A couple people also mentioned 9.
Hey, Sean, my number is 9.
Sean and Deborah, a little bit different today at Manchester Airport, leaving for the Middle East. So 50% confident, and the winner is number 9. Thank you.
Which is interesting because I'll put a video up here. What I did later on, after seeing everyone's videos, seeing that they mentioned 9 so much, I went back and it was easy to just place a couple of the sheets of paper, move them around to turn a 2 into a 9. That visually, actually, they're very similar to each other. So I thought maybe there was just an issue with the consciousness going out, seeing my wall. And as we know from experience and from research, that sometimes picking up numbers and letters is tricky because it's just a bunch of curvy and straight lines, and the mind has to piece it all together. And sometimes it doesn't quite get it quite right.
Yeah, if you were looking at a 2, but you didn't see that bottom line at the bottom, you would see the curve and the line going down, which is actually what Angela described. She said she did see a curve and then a straight vertical line, but then she was confused. And in the end, she said that she used a tarot card and it had a 9 on it. So she just went with the 9. I thought that was great that 2 out of 5 viewers had a 2.
Yeah, that's great.